Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's Tuesday. The weekend is over. Some of you guys may have had a long weekend if you happen to live in the United States. Of course, you still may not have had a long weekend living in the United States. I know my wife didn't, but that is the curse of working in retail. What are you going to do, right? Well, hopefully, you guys have had a fantastic start to your week and you are all geared up and ready for some more story time. Tonight, we continue our read of The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand. A travelogue memoir by Lawrence Davidson. If you guys have not managed to catch any of it so far, it's been pretty good. Very descriptive as he goes through and he describes some of his travels and going around and checking out things in Bangkok or not Bangkok, but, like Chiang Mai, I think he's been in, um, recommending that maybe Bangkok was a part of it, recommending that you check out and get off of the beaten path if you want to find good things when you're traveling, and you know what? I will not say he's wrong about some of that. Tourist things are great, but they end up being tourist things. You might get a little tiny taste of what life is like there, but you don't really get to experience the place when you are in all of the tourist locations. So, get off the beaten path. Try somewhere else. Walk around, go down alleys that you wouldn't have gone down before. Depends on the place. In the inner city, maybe not, but depends on where you are, right? If you have missed any of the chapters so far, we will be starting on chapter 4 tonight. You can catch all of the previous chapters on my YouTube page, youtube.com/at Sir Arminius. Of course, there are links on that YouTube page and on the descriptions on both Rumble and YouTube tonight of places that you can go to check out the author himself. Of course, he does have an author page on Amazon, but you can check him out on Amazon. I want to say you could probably get him on Goodreads. He's got his own website. He's got a Substack, all those nice places to check him out. And of course, if you are enjoying the book, consider supporting the author by picking up a copy. And if you haven't already, make sure that you are clicking those free little buttons on the different streams that you may be on to follow or subscribe to me so that way you know when I go live because I love doing these indie author books. Now, this is the last indie author book I have in my satchel at the moment. So, if you happen to know anybody who wants me to read one, have them reach out to me. If not, then we may end up moving back away from indie authors for a little while because if I have no more to read, I have no more to read. What are you going to do, right? But as long as I can, I will continue to support the indie author community because a lot of the great books that you can get out there are written by indie authors. They are the ones that are pushing the bounds and taking you in places that you may not have been before, as opposed to more mainstream books, which the publishing houses are not going to publish the book unless they are pretty certain that they can get, a return on their investment. And if they're not sure, they may not take a chance on it. So give these people a chance. Listen to their initial stuff on my YouTube page. Support those indie authors. And if you are an indie author or know one who would like to have their items put out there and read by a professional voice actor, have them reach out to me. And now, go ahead and grab yourself a nice warm drink or a cold drink, depending on where in the world that you live and what you have a hankering for. Get yourself a blanket, put your feet up, get all nice and cozy, and we are going to go ahead and jump in once again to read The Flow, a hedonist guide to Buddhism, meditation, and travels in Thailand, a travelogue memoir by Lawrence Davidson. Now, as a reminder, this book is set, needless to say, in Thailand, which means we are going to run across words that may not be familiar to you, very possibly not familiar to me. I will do my best with them. I try the pronunciations. Some of them may be right, some of them may be wrong. And just know that it comes from a place of love. You are welcome to provide gentle corrections for me if you happen to know that I am saying something wrong. I will check my chats in between the chapters because, of course, I do record the chapters, but I will be happy to check the chats in between the chapters. And if you have something up there, I will try to correct it. If not, just realize I am doing my best. And now, let's get started as we move into Chapter 4, Chiang Mai, Much Ado About Something. You only discover who you really are when the ground stops feeling familiar. Part 1, Pre-Monastery. Repeat after me. Chiang Mai. That place, those people, the smells of exotic flora, the street food with its accompanying sound of walks working everywhere, tuk-tuks and scooters buzzing by, the thump of subwoofers at night drawing you into hippie and expat dens, pot and hash clouds wafting outdoors and windows accompanied by bleary smiles and gestures of welcome, a dozen dialects being spoken, all looking for the good stuff, no matter what that good stuff may be. Chiang Mai is a wonderland assault on the senses. The multifaceted smiles that adorn almost every Thai face in greeting, and the red-faced tourist tortured by the heat, humidity, and mosquitoes. There is so much to delight in that it gleefully overwhelmed me at times. As the insanity and 1,000-volt buzz of Bangkok ebbed into the background and my soul relaxed into even flow, the chill atmosphere of Chiang Mai eased into the void vacated of the explosive sensory excess like a scented soft breeze. Yes, Bangkok is a rush, and where Bangkok is like mainlining 1,000 bean extract of caffeine, Chiang Mai is the exhale, more hum than howl, gooier, like the smiling vibe you get while gazing at a backlit cloud sunset where the edges are afire with a dozen hues of gold, the inner rim fluffy cotton candy like a plumped up feather pillow. It's got the kind of vibe where you wonder if you've joined a cult without realizing it. Chiang Mai is Thailand's new city. That is a delightful contradiction. It was founded sometime between 1294 AD and 1296 AD. But what's a couple years when you're measuring things in centuries? For perspective, where I'm from, anything over 100 years old gets a plaque and several preservation committees. In Thailand, 100 years old is brand new. Located 435 miles north of Bangkok in the mountainous plateau region called the Highlands, it is the central governing seat of the larger Chiang Mai province, which boasts verdant valleys filled with picturesque agriculture, rivers, mountains, and national parks. There are 10 scattered around the province. The city itself is nestled in a broad, flat valley, surrounded by mountains to the north, east, and west. Thus, it has a very different feel from Bangkok. Chiang Mai, however, feels like fun. There's an atmosphere that feels expectant and vibrant. From the newest hip neighborhoods right into the heart of the ancient moat surrounded Old Town, everything feels ready for action. but without Bangkok's intensity blast to your cortex. My first full day in Chiang Mai found me wandering the streets of the Nimon district from early to late morning. I was getting hungry when I stumbled upon the Hong Tuao Inn on a high raised sidewalk along Nimanhayam Inn Road. It was there that I enjoyed the best tom kha gai and po pia tod I have ever eaten. The old restaurant had a small sign which read, Established 1938. Guided by that alone, I figured that they knew what they were doing. Two split old wood shutter doors and the window frames were painted an odd seafoam blue green. A menu hung on a nail on one of the outer doors, an open sign hanging in the window. The interior glass door sported completely out of place ye olde English lettering showing hours of operation, while the lintels above the windows and door had alternating blue and green stained glass panels. Nothing made sense, yet the place beckoned to me. It was still early, just past 11 a.m., so the lunchtime crowd wouldn't start filtering in for a while. The dining room looked like it hadn't changed since Thailand was called Siam. Two elderly, smiling women came out from behind an ornate carved teak screen to say, Sawata di ka, and seat me at a table. Music began to quietly draft through the front of the house, which to my delighted surprise was classic jazz. Davis, Gordon, Hurt, Evans, and Monk played in the background throughout my lunch. They seated me near a portable aircon unit which was welcome as the climate had gotten hot and sticky outside. I've been exploring the hipster and digital nomad infested Niman neighborhood since dawn as the temperature and humidity steadily rose. It does that every day in Thailand. The menu was a greatest hits of Thai cuisine, and as much as I wanted to order everything on the 12-page book of classics, I stuck to my guns and kept it light. I ordered soup, fried rolls, and Thai milk tea, knowing I'd be exploring later for dinner. Tom Kha Gai is the perfect Thai soup, made with coconut milk, lemongrass, galangal root, kaffir lime leaves, straw mushrooms, cilantro, green onions, fresh lime juice, mousedrop chili, those incendiary little Thai chilies also known as bird's eyes, and chicken. It's about as interesting a spoonful as you'll ever experience. Explosive in aromas and flavors with complexity and depth I'd never come across. Yet it also possessed a delicate mouthfeel. It was a masterpiece in soup. Even my dining partner, a lone fly on the table, seemed in awe as if patiently waiting for an errant splatter to land near before making its move. We had a little chat to determine if he was in the end of life stage, but every time I asked his opinion, his wings flicked. Out of curiosity, I put a small drop of broth near it. Jumping into action, he enjoyed my offering. To this day, it is the only fly I've ever spent time with socially that wasn't a complete pain in the ass. Next was Po Pia Todd, those heroin addiction like fried spring rolls. They were the color of a 24-carat wedding band. With no hint of oiliness, they were blazing hot and possessed a supernatural crunch that made me smile. The sheer mastery over oil, heat, and timing was textbook perfect. Then there was the dipping sauce. Not the cloying cherry red cornstarch sludge we get back in the States. Come on. When a sauce is so overly starched that it doesn't drizzle off the back of a spoon? This was the same flavor profile, but with notes of hibiscus, preserved lemon peel, and just a touch of vinegar to brighten what, in my experience, is usually a thick, sticky abomination. When the rolls were finished, I spooned the rest of the sauce into my mouth. It was that good. I'd been studying a little Thai language for a few months, and when one of the ladies saw me eating the sauce with a spoon, her look plainly asking if I was okay, I looked at her and said, Arroy Mak Mak, which loosely translates to OMFG. Okay, no, it doesn't, but it does mean this is amazeballs. No, it doesn't mean that either. It literally means this is very delicious, though I prefer both of my translations. She laughed and smiled with one of those Thai smiles that is full of love. Once I knew I'd be heading to Chiang Mai before the monastery, I fell headfirst into the internet rabbit hole, deep diving every detail about the city and province, especially the food. Like any internet quagmire, it was informative, though the lion's share of data skewed to wildly subjective opinion. I've learned that in the online food scene, a rock and roll themed chain restaurant can get 5 stars for huge portions. Well, a mom and pop joint with transcendent traditional dishes gets dinged because they don't speak English or the service was slow. I reserve non exclusive rights to use the middle finger for those insane reviews. Back at my hotel, just a short walk down the block, I prepared for my upcoming monastery retreat, making lists, making sure I had documents and pickup in place, while double checking everything. I was still dragging around a roll on full of jet lag. My brain was still noisy in semi fog mode, overthinking everything, executing nothing. So I did what any time zone compromised traveler would do. I took a shower, a nap, then hit the streets in search of dinner. Wandering with purposeful, vague intention, I stepped out onto Nimmenheimen Road, the main artery pulsing with life, neon, and LEDs. Well, the occasional scent of something delicious tempted my resolve with every street cart and restaurant door I passed. I turned right and wandered down a few blocks. There it was, a Mickey D's. That's a hard pass, Ronald. I walked past markets, improvised art galleries on the sidewalk, banks, pharmacies, and assorted mystery shops. A huge beer garden bar, none of which summoned me with that magical traveler's call. I turned around and walked the other way. On the corner of Nimmen Soy 2 and Nimmenheimen Road, just past the street where my hotel was nestled down from the main road, stood a brooding black building with the kind of swagger you'd expect from a Bond villain's bachelor pad. In bold, glowing white letters against the broad, flat black wall, it announced itself to the world: Fresh Harvest Farm Butcher Steak, which, if nothing else, is a name that doesn't bury the lead. I was intrigued, not just by the austere confidence of the building, but by the name itself, which sounded like it had been assembled by a marketing team craving beef while using Google Translate. Out front, a dais displayed the menu like sacred text for carnivorous pilgrims. And oh, it delivered. If you're vegetarian or vegan, this was your cue to flee. This place wasn't just meat forward, it was meat centric. Okay, they did have side salads and potatoes, but that was an aside. Everything on that menu whispered sweet nothings to my inner caveman. As I was mentally composing a sonnet to Wagyu, the restaurant's owner slash maitre d' appeared. Enter Jackie. Thai, stylish, confident, and brimming with the kind of entrepreneurial charisma that makes you want to buy whatever he's selling, even if it's a frozen chicken breast dressed up as a poire de brise. Jackie introduced himself with a Y and a grin. With a blend of pride and salesmanship, he explained that he personally raised Wagyu cattle on 2 properties in Chonburi and Tak provinces. He assured me that he followed all the prescribed husbandry protocols specific to the breed. No shortcuts, no cheats. Just high grade Thai Wagyu, born and bred with care, precision, and, presumably, still a blue and morning dew playing in the background while the cows were getting their daily massage. Wagyu breaks down simply. Wa means Japanese. Yu means cow. So, yes, this ultra fancy meat everyone's raving about is literally Japanese cow. But not just any cow. It refers most often to the Japanese black breed, though there are 3 other variations under the Wagyu umbrella: all of them pampered like cattle royalty. Sometimes you'll see it and marketed as Kobe beef, which is the same animal but with the luxury pedigree of being raised in the Kobe region of Japan. It's the same principle that makes people shell out extra for Copper River salmon from Alaska, Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, or Champagne from France. Geography becomes a status symbol. Thus, the term Kobe becomes a point of pride and a strong marketing tool guaranteeing authenticity and quality. The tenderness and flavor of the highly marbled meat, intracellular fat laced between the muscles, makes for an outrageously flavorful and tender product. You might think that all that fat would come with a voucher for a free ambulance ride to the nearest cardiovascular clinic, but the fat in the Wagyu breed is mono unsaturated. In other words, it's the good fat that your body and brain needs without that bad LDL, low density lipoprotein, cholesterol, guaranteeing a prescription for statin drugs in your future. Jackie wasn't just some local hustler with a nice shirt and a good story. He'd spent 3 years studying the art of Wagyu husbandry in Australia and Japan, then brought that hard earned knowledge, and impressively, some Japanese black cows, back home. Here's how it works at Fresh Harvest: the meat is pre cut, weighed, vacuum sealed, and tucked into a freezer like cryo sleeping astronauts. Each package is labeled with cut, grade, thickness, and weight. You, the customer, get to play butcher shop sommelier. You pick your steak and tell Jackie where on the scale of rare to well done you want it cooked. Wagyu requires a different cooking style than your standard ribeye or New York strip. I recommend medium rare. I selected an 8-ounce A5 ribeye, gloriously marbled, that was winking at me like an enthusiastic bar girl. Medium rare. Anything else is culinary malpractice. To round it out, I ordered mashed potatoes and a fresh green salad with herbs. An omnivore's trifecta. Jackie's drink menu included wines of unknown quality, alongside over a dozen local and rotating craft beers on tap. I ordered a brown ale, expecting a pint. Instead, a towering 60-ounce pitcher and an industrial strength mug arrived, daring me. I missed either the fine print or the concept of restraint. With time to kill and beer to conquer, I struck up a conversation with Jackie and a fellow diner from Singapore seated at the next table. What began as casual banter turned into a carnivore's round table: ribeye versus strip, bone marrow roasting tips, braised shanks, the glories of offal, and coagulated blood. Nothing brings strangers together in a steakhouse like the poetry of meat. 45 minutes later, post defrost and fire kissed to perfection, our plates arrived. Jackie faded off to charm other tables, and we got down to business. The steak was flawless. Rich, tender, the kind of meal that makes you briefly reconsider vegetarianism so you can feel smug about coming back from it. Wagyu showcases a natural sweetness and buttery richness that seeps into the muscle fibers thanks to all that intricate marbling. As the fat hits high grill heat, it renders into the meat, amping up the umami into a full on mouth symphony territory. This isn't serrated knife cut, chomp, and swallow beef. It's melt in your mouth, cut with a fork luxury. The marbling breaks down connective tissue, leaving you with a texture somewhere between cloud and silk. Add to that a scoop of Robuchon worthy mashed potatoes and a salad so herb packed and fresh it could have moonlighted as aromatherapy. I didn't finish the ale. I tried, but at one point the line between dinner pairing and drunken regret has to be drawn, especially right before monk life began. The next morning I stumbled out of my hotel early in search of caffeine. I ended up at an indie coffee shop called Blue, where the espresso is less coffee and more Arabica jet fuel syrup. I ordered a quad shot latte, which drew raised eyebrows either out of concern or quiet admiration. Hard to tell. I should have reassured them that professionals monitor my blood pressure. Vertical and jittery, I wandered deeper into the crosshatch lanes of Niman neighborhood in search of something solid to pair with the caffeinated euphoria buzzing through my bloodstream. That's when I found Manifresto, a charming cafe tucked into Niman Soy 5. Yes, that's the actual name, and no, I don't know what it means either. Sounds like a deodorant for youthful testosterone driven pimple boys. The outdoor balcony with its golden hardwood tables and hanging jungle of plants was pure Chiang Mai charm. I ordered the smoked salmon Benedict with asparagus, a fresh croissant, and a mango smoothie. Everything was perfect. The hollandaise was silky, bright, buttery, and unbroken. Let me repeat that, unbroken. A small miracle worth documenting. I made my way back to the beating heart of Niman, the Maya Mall. Look, I don't like malls. I never have. But in Thailand, mega malls are temples. They're massive, gleaming cathedrals of aspiration where each new mall seems designed to outdo the last in sheer extravagance. The Maya Mall had all the mall essentials: high end trophy stores, a food court that would make an American mall weep in shame, electronics and sunglass kiosks, and a luxury grocery store called Rimping, where you can casually toss A lobes of foie gras, live grouper, large tins of Oestra caviar, and a $47 round of Espoir de Bourgogne into your basket as if you're grabbing milk. I needed two essentials and figured the mall might deliver. It did not. I Everything I found was either not right or priced as if I were shopping on Rodeo Drive, but without the celebrity sightings. I left empty-handed, reaffirmed in my belief that malls suck, even when they come with sushi-grade tuna and a Porsche showroom. Chiang Mai has a vibrant Japanese expat community that had settled a century ago, which raised my expectations, because where there are Japanese expats, there is always excellent Japanese food. And not just tourist trap teppanyaki where a chef flips shrimp into your mouth from the flat top. I plunged into the digital underworld of foodie reviews and, after wading through the usual slurry of hype and horror stories, I found something promising: a recently opened restaurant called Shishi Tay, tucked along 21 Nimmenhamen Road. Elegant, authentic, and just pretentious enough to suggest someone in the kitchen had trained under a sushi master, perfecting one grain of rice at a time, all while enduring a decade of emotional neglect. It would be my final culinary hurrah before heading off into the hills to commune with monks and mosquitoes. I harbor a deep respect, an emotional attachment to sushi. So, in one of those, you only live once, and also I might not eat again for a month while meditating in a robe moments, I decided this would be a perfect Last Supper. Though Shishi Te was officially listed as a Subiyaki and Shabu Shabu joint, but with A5 Wagyu, it was the sashimi reviews that made me sit up straighter. Comments gushed about the extraordinary quality, the kind of breathless awe usually reserved for epiphanies or standing at the rim of the Grand Canyon for the first time. I've had the great opportunity to eat world class sushi many times in places where the rice temperature alone could inspire poetry. But Shishi Te came in hot, kicked open the sliding door, and calmly obliterated every one of those memories with a quiet, confident, "Thanks for playing. Now pack up your bamboo mats, hand over the Yanagiba, and show yourself out." First up, the uni. 50 grams of sea urchin gonads. Yes, gonads. From the Hokkaido species Heliocidaris crassipinina. These little ocean treasures were extracted from their intimidatingly spiny shells just moments before making their way to my table. They arrived with the kind of reverence normally reserved for newborn royalty. They were served with toasted sheets of nori, that's seaweed for the sushi novices in the back, the dark green paper made from either Pyropia yezosinus or Pyropia tenera. There were also shiso leaves, Perea frutinensens, a member of the mint family, Lamianceae, that tasted like what might happen if mint, basil, and a sweet summer breeze had a torrid love affair. The uni was better than reasonably good. They were like licking the soul of the ocean while being serenaded by a siren in a silk kimono. Fresh, creamy, briny perfection. Pure tide pool. They didn't just melt in my mouth, they whispered sweet nothings on the way down. Next was an appetizer that sounded like a jazz saxophonist from Okinawa. Gayutan ponzu. Thin slices of marinated beef tongue. Don't flinch, it's delicious. Served in a shallow bowl with preserved lemons, fermented tobiko, Paxarocodes brachioperis flying fish roe, and the most impossibly thin shredded Japanese cabbage I've ever seen. I'm really proficient with my knives and French mandolin, but this was on another level. The whole thing was tied together by a house made ponzu reduction, a tangy, umami rich sauce anchored in yuzu, that punchy, aromatic Chinese citrus fruit that tastes like a grapefruit got its life together and had fun with the tiniest whisper of honey. Every bite was balance incarnate, bright, savory, acidic, rich. The kind of flavor geometry that makes your taste buds sit up straighter. Then the crescendo, the sashimi plate, a curated riot of oceanic treasures, sliced so precisely it was a work of art. As mentioned, when Shishite markets itself as a high end shabu shabu destination, this place is also a church for fish purists. There's rice if you want it, but notably, there was not a single nigiri choice on the menu. No fish on rice, just the raw, unadorned truth. It was sushi stripped of its accessories, elegant and unapologetically perfect. The chutoro and otoro, those buttery, transcendent cuts from distinct parts of bluefin tuna, Thunis orientalis, were clean and flawlessly delicious, but they were, against all odds, upstaged. First by the Ika squid, or calamarium, which was so fresh it squeaked. It had that perfect snap between the teeth. Then came the Saba, mackerel, Scombrini japonicus, delicately smoked but unbrined, as if someone had whispered campfire to it from across the room. And although I initially rolled my eyes at the inclusion of sake, salmon, salaminide, the woo woo prom queen of sushi menus, it humiliated every negative expectation I had. Fatty, velvety, fresh enough to convert the most hardened sashimi snob. I was briefly silenced. The hotate, scallops, pectininde equipaenten, nearly floated off the plate. Ethereal is not a hyperbole here. They were sweet, buttery, and yielding, practically humming with oceanic delicacy, topped with little glistening bubbles of seawater foam like Poseidon's own garnish. Last was amoebae, large freshwater prawns, Pandalus montagui, tender, translucent, delicate, but with a secret vendetta. Microscopic barbs nestled under their carapace, extracted their vengeance the moment I leaned in to do what one must suck the juice and brain from the heads. It was primal, perfect, and left my lips looking like I'd lost a fight with a microplane. Is it rude to bleed for your food? Perhaps. I regret nothing. Wasabi. That green chalky paste that comes with your supermarket sushi or the stuff slathered onto rolls at most sit down bars, that's not wasabi. That's powdered horseradish, dyed an artificially superfund sight green, bulked up with dried mustard and flavoring agents, and shaped into a sad impersonation of the real thing. That stuff we call wasabi is like calling Velveeta camembert. True wasabi, Wasabia japonica, is a high maintenance diva plant. It's a knobby, light, jade green rhizome grown in pristine, cold, slow to moderately moving fresh water in shallow gravel beds shaded from direct sunlight like a spa treatment for vegetables. It demands exacting temperature and humidity conditions at just the right time and throws tantrums if anything is even slightly off. Agriculturalists refer to it as the botanical equivalent of an opera soprano with a thousand clause contract. Unsurprisingly, it's staggeringly expensive and nearly impossible to grow at commercial scale, which is why most have only ever tasted the imposter. But once you try real wasabi, the vast difference is obvious. Sure, it still has that sinus clearing zing that wakes up parts of your skull you forgot existed, but beyond that, it is subtle, earthy, grassy, a little fruity, a little floral. There's complexity in that heat. It doesn't punch you in the face like the fake stuff. It leans in and whispers secrets. You don't need much, just a dab. And whatever you do, do not stir it into your soy sauce, unless you really want to offend the chef. At Shishite, my sashimi arrived with a generous pillow of fresh wasabi, grated on a sharkskin board which is traditional and dramatic. By the end of the meal, that beautiful green mound was gone. Then there was the soy sauce, which deserves its own standing ovation. Forget the little red capped bottles we all know. Serviceable, sure, but that's the vin ordinaire of the soy sauce world. The soy at Shishite was a different beast altogether. It was deep, rich, almost creamy, with restrained saltiness, layered umami, and a molasses charcoal whisper on the back palate. I pinky dipped into the shallow bowl when no one was looking to taste it by itself. More than once. Many times. No shame. Soy is not a sauce to drown your fish in. It's seasoning, an accent. If your fish needs to swim in soy sauce, something has gone terribly wrong. A good piece of sashimi requires just a kiss of soy if it needs any at all. True sushi masters will season your fish before it ever hits your plate. No further customization required. The result? Pure magic. Seeing the rapture on my face somewhere between spiritual transcendence and food coma as I wiped my hands and face with a fresh, citrus scented warm towel, my server appeared with a quiet smile and placed a scoop of rich, impossibly creamy matcha green tea ice cream beside a cup of shockingly exquisite green tea. Compliments of the chef, she said, for ordering well and eating like a Japanese gentleman. I almost teared up. Sometimes a lifetime of obsessive food nerddom actually pays off in the smallest, most gracious of ways. And the punchline? When the bill came with the gold capsule chilled Junmai Daijingo sake and the kind of service that made me feel like a dignitary, it was incredibly reasonable. Not cheap, but not gouge your eyes out, this must be a mistake expensive. I've paid more for burger, fries, and a wedge salad and cocktails at a gastropub back home in Walla Walla. I left the restaurant full, glowing, slightly buzzed, and deeply grateful. Sometimes life doesn't just feed you, it throws in dessert, bows politely, and thanks you for showing up. Chiang Mai Part 2. Post Monastery. Traveling. It leaves you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller. Ibn Battuta. Coming down out of the mountains and back into civilization was disorienting, to put it mildly. My time up at I Monastery was extraordinarily purifying, peaceful, and addictive. The camaraderie forged among brothers clad in saffron, both my intake classmates and the resident monks, was deep. Leaving it behind stirred a quiet melancholy I hadn't seen coming. But as the road carved down toward Chiang Mai, a ripple of excitement rose within. Lay life loomed ahead, electric and unpredictable. I wasn't entirely sure if I was ready, but readiness felt beside the point. That path was now before me. Most people don't realize how relentlessly exhausting decision making is. The constant pressure: what to eat, what to wear, where to go, how to spend your day feels banal until it's gone. Monastic life, by contrast, is structured and serene, paired to a clean daily rhythm. No errands, no emails, no brunch plans, no juggling warring clan factions. Now I was back in Chiang Mai, no longer cloaked in saffron, steering my own ship again. The sheer freedom of it was a heady mix of mortifying and thrilling. If you looked closely, the evidence lingered. My head was freshly shaved, though thankfully my eyebrows had begun their slow comeback, and I still had that quiet post monk glow. But technically, I was no longer a bhikkhu. In the Dhammakaya tradition, leaving monkhood involves a private disrobing, a ritual senior monks perform with grave solemnity. Few will do, few will do it. Symbolically, it's killing a brother. Afterward, you shed the robes and return to civilian life. Putting on normal clothes feels strange. Familiar, yes, but also vaguely illicit, like I'd stolen someone else's pants and was waiting to get caught. Something felt missing, like I'd left a piece of myself folded up with the robes. Once disrobed, you vow to uphold the five precepts, or eight if you're feeling extra devout, which are basic ethical guidelines for lay Buddhists. 1. Refrain from killing any living being. 2. Refrain from taking what isn't freely given. 3. Refrain from sexual misconduct. 4. Refrain from lying or spreading gossip. 5. Refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. Unlike a monk's 227 rules, the layperson's five are simple, obvious, and entirely self enforced. There are no Buddha cops issuing tickets for mild gossip or a second glass of wine. And if you do kill someone, there are traditional channels for that sort of idiocy. Mostly, though, you just have to live with yourself. The precepts aren't about policing, they are a moral GPS, quietly recalculating when you veer off course. In Thailand, ordaining as a monk, even temporarily, is considered an essential rite of passage for young men. It's deeply cultural and deeply respected. A man who has walked the path of Dhamma, even briefly, brings pride to his family and earns personal insight that is seen as critical to becoming a good and worthy man. When I returned to my Chiang Mai hotel, the staff greeted me not with polite professionalism, but with something closer to awe. They'd known I was ordaining, and now I was back, slightly changed, still monk adjacent, still radiating that quiet monastic energy. I felt vaguely fraudulent, like I should be holding a lotus flower and blessing the elevator. But the staff were generous to a fault, practically tripping over themselves to offer help. Ice, drinks, extra keys, or anything I might dream of. In Thailand, it turns out, respect for monks lingers long after the robes come off. After checking into my artfully comfortable room, each at the Nimen Mai design is uniquely styled with just the right dose of boutique flair, I did the only logical thing before unpacking. I took a long, indulgent, civilization grade hot shower. Yes, I'd had my usual monastery rinse that morning, but that wasn't about hygiene. That was about transition. For the first time in a month, I could just stand there, letting steam rise and water cascade. No handheld wand flailing about, no sudden temperature shifts, no strategic negotiations with the Spider Kingdom. Monastery showers, you see, came with what I began calling arachnid negotiations. Getting the water to a bearable temp required a delicate pas de deux with the dial, often with a frisky huntsman or golden orb weaver casually dropped down like it had notes. And the post shower ritual? That's when they got bold. You were vulnerable, draped in nothing but a towel and a thin film of dignity, squeegeeing the stall per protocol, and that's when they made their move. Let's just say I've learned the precise speed at which a man can squeegee with one hand, hold a towel with the other, and fend off an 8 legged incursion in real time. So, yes, that first spider free, hot water that stayed hot shower was pure bliss. It lasted a while, I assure you. I was staying at the Nimenmai Design Hotel for a week before moving to another spot tucked within Chiang Mai's old city. I like to move around a bit when I travel. Different corners of a city offer different angles to the story. But at that particular moment, getting unpacked and semi organized was priority one. Then I could wander out, find something good to munch on, and start dreaming about what this next chapter, this unscripted open road phase, might reveal. High on my list was visiting an ethical elephant sanctuary, because if you're in northern Thailand and don't hang out with elephants, did you even Chiang Mai? I've been fascinated by pachyderms since childhood. The closest I'd ever been to an elephant was behind zoo bars, or, more dubiously, at a circus my parents took me to when I was very young. This, I hoped, would be different. Less sadness, more soul. Elephants are revered in Thai culture, and I wanted to meet them on their turf. No rides, no tricks, no spectacle. I'd also made plans with my monk brothers to take a Thai cooking class before they departed the country. It felt like a fitting way to mark our re entry into the world. Former monks in aprons rather than robes, fumbling our way through curry pastes and wok technique, while trying not to unmake whatever karma and merits we'd just banked. I had my marching orders, so I rolled up my sleeves and set about lining up the details. The Nimmenhamen neighborhood of Chiang Mai has an upbeat, manicured vibe about it that's palpable. Commonly shortened to Nimmen by expats, digital nomads, and people who say content creator with a straight face, this Northwest neighborhood wasn't always the buzzed out, globally sourced oat milk foamed haven it is today. A couple of decades ago, Nimmen was a sleepy, tree lined neighborhood. Schools, kids playing in the street, dogs that actually belonged to someone, and neighbors who knew whose mom made the best somtam. Quiet, familial, unfussy. Then came the bulldozers of progress, humming with the promise of redevelopment. Just up the road from the airport, Nimmen was targeted by government incentives and that mysterious engine known as new money. The neighborhood got the classic gentrification spit polish. Humble homes gave way to condo towers with glass front balconies no one uses, and rooftop pools built for social media cocktail hour, not swimming. The transformation was swift. Within a decade, the neighborhood evolved from kids playing tag to startups playing venture capital poker. The local soy dog now wears a bandana and has an Instagram following. Niman today is a high octane mishmash of lifestyle branding and postmodern indulgence. There are boutique hotels where the furniture is incredibly uncomfortable, but looks fantastic in photos. Restaurants? Yes, all of them. Lebanese meze, Moroccan tagines, Hawaiian poke, Swedish fika, artisan Neapolitan pizza, Mexican taqueritas, French, Italian, Russian, Isan and Lana, Cambodian, Laotian, and four places that will try to convince you they invented avocado toast. There are wine bars, beer gardens, whiskey dens, cocktail labs, and mocktail temples. At least one place serves drinks in oversized light bulbs. And of course, there are tattoo parlors, co working spaces with neon signs that say things like Rise and Grind, artisanal soap shops and massage parlors where the receptionist is finishing a graduate thesis on AI ethics. And then there's the coffee. My God, the coffee. Small to large coffee shops lurk on every corner, like caffeinated hydras. You could sneeze and hit 3 espresso bars before your tissue hits the trash can. There's more atmospheric pressure coming from all the La Mazzocos and La Povinas than a space launch. The air is thick with the alchemy of fresh grounds and oat milk microfoam, a vapor trail wafting down every alley. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear the gentle hiss of milk steaming and a man in a linen apron whispering, Single origin. You could spend 2 weeks in Chiang Mai, visiting cafes 3 times a day, not sleeping and achieving a state of transcendental alertness usually reserved for hummingbirds or teenage coders with a case of energy drinks. And you wouldn't even scratch the surface. This is not so much a neighborhood as it is a caffeinated dreamscape created by hipsters with design degrees and trust funds. And yet it works. Somehow. Niman has mastered the art of chic chaos, a neighborhood where cultures mingle over soy cappuccinos, and suddenly you're talking about crypto with a Danish UX designer, a Russian mobster, and a Brazilian yogi. It's ridiculous. It's beautiful. But it wasn't just roasting coffee beans perfuming the air in Niman. Mixed into that olfactory cocktail was another unmistakable note: fresh, sticky green and its louder cousin, skunk. Depending on the wind and time of day, the whole neighborhood could smell like a reggae festival or the parking lot of a fish show. Passing pot shops, I was occasionally transported, not spiritually, but sensorially, back to the haze of youth, to Grateful Dead runs and brownies from the lot with suspiciously long lasting effects. Chiang Mai was deep in its cannabis honeymoon phase. Pot shops dotted the neighborhood like Starbucks in Seattle, each with punny names: Buddha Blaze, Thai High Club, Monk Munchie, and laid back patios straight out of a California boardwalk fantasy. You couldn't walk 100 feet without someone waving you in with a joint and a grin. Everyone looked like they were having a great time, or at least a slow, thoughtful one. That hasn't been my thing for years. I still enjoy the smell. There's something comforting about someone else's journey into oblivion, but now I prefer altered states from good coffee, wine, unexpected kindness, or a well executed foot massage. More than once, I was invited into circles of blissed out 20 somethings trading tokes and tales. Invitations came when someone spotted my weathered Winterland 1978 shirt and figured I had stories. They weren't wrong. I'd smile, thank them, and decline with a polite, I've got somewhere to be, even if that somewhere was a noodle stall calling my name. In hindsight, I should have shared a story or two, but I was chasing a different kind of high: clarity, connection, whatever the opposite of a munchie fueled binge is. Not everyone in Chiang Mai, or Thailand more broadly, is thrilled with the pot paradise vibe. Many locals, especially near tourist heavy spots, are less enchanted by dazed foreigners sparking up in public, outside temples, or, ultimate insult, right next to families enjoying a picnic. There's a fine line between freedom and being that guy, and some folks cross it with a joint in one hand and zero awareness in the other. Cannabis may be legal for now, but Thailand's relationship with weed waxes and wanes with every election. One government greenlights it, the next threatens to roll it back. Yet, with the genie out of the bong shaped bottle, A full reversal seems unlikely. There's just too much money, tourism, and jobs that politicians love to tally as wins, almost as much as ribbon cuttings and photo ops. The shift has created a divide. On one side, those embracing the benefits, dispensaries, CBD cafes, ganjapreneurs. On the other, locals don't want to feel like they're living inside a Sublime album. It's tension in the air, literally and figuratively. Connectivity. That modern convenience that makes the world go round. Every coffee shop, cafe, bar, brewery, market, cat cafe, hotel, restaurant, fuel station, pharmacy, and pot shop in Chiang Mai offers complimentary high speed Wi Fi. This is one of the key reasons Chiang Mai became ground zero for digital nomads long before the term was splashed across LinkedIn bios. What's a digital nomad? If you've got a laptop with Wi Fi, Bluetooth, a camera, a decent phone, earbuds, and just enough skill not to get fired via email, congrats! You can hang out in Thailand and pretend you're consulting. With high speed internet and enough bandwidth to link space stations, Chiang Mai is the OG Southeast Asian hotspot for caffeinated keyboard jockeys. You'll find them in cafes, pot shops, and bars sipping their third latte or first singha, juggling Zoom calls, munching croissants, or sketching business funnels between hits from a gravity bong. Now, co working spaces abound. You can rent by the hour, the day, the week, or your entire visa window. Chiang Mai started the trend, but now you'll find those hotspots in just about every Thai town from Chiang Rai to Koh Lanta. Of course, not all storefronts cater to the entrepreneurial expat or wandering UX designer. Chiang Mai, like the rest of Thailand, is also home to three other ubiquitous business models: massage parlors, by the hundreds, pharmacies, you can score antibiotics like you're buying Tic Tacs, and you can get ED drugs while solving the problems from your last encounter that required the antibiotics in the first place, and the ever present 7-Eleven. Let's talk about 7-Eleven. In the States, 7-Eleven stores are often depressing, flickering, fluorescent outposts selling rubbery nachos with liquid plastic cheese and hot dogs that taste like the 90s. In Thailand, 7-Elevens are clean, well lit, and everywhere. I mean, everywhere. It's not unusual to find two of them on the same block, sometimes across from each other like a passive aggressive turf war. They're busy too. Locals and backpackers pop in for sundries, fresh fruit, dirt cheap ham and cheese paninis, nicknamed toasties, and surprisingly decent cappuccinos. Most sell hard liquor. Some don't stock alcohol or cigarettes. Others offer chopped salads, bento boxes, or are shrine like temples to sugary snacks. Franchise rules set core products, but owners have flexibility, so each 7-Eleven has its own personality. It's wild. Even more surreal, in 2000 AD, 7-Elevens were still rare in Thailand. The first opened in Bangkok in 1989, but since then they've metastasized like Mickey D's on a Red Bull binge. As of July 2024, there were just shy of 14,000 in the country. 14,000. They become so essential that travel sites like Agoda and Booking.com list 7-Eleven nearby under hotel amenities right between free toiletries, Wi Fi, and flat screen TV. Because who needs a gym when salvation is a ham and cheese toasty away? Chiang Mai isn't small, but it still feels cozy, livable, and totally navigable, like a city that knows when to hold back. It scores high on lifestyle charts: safety, affordability, food, friendliness, digital infrastructure, coffee shop density, you name it. But there's one catch: the dreaded smoke season. Every year, farmers across Thailand and neighbors Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia torch spent rice and wheat fields to prep for the next crop. The result? a thick, smoky fog that settles like an overstayed guest who chain smoked and refused to crack a window. It's a trade off. Live in Wonderland most of the year, but from February to April, invest in a good air purifier or a sudden interest in southern island life. For most of the year, Chiang Mai is easy living with an upgrade. It's got everything: wet markets, street markets, hypermarkets, top notch healthcare, sometimes polite drivers, and most critically, restaurants ranging from amazing noodle stall for 50 baht to yes, we sous vide duck in angel's tears and press it through our presse a canard. Everyone I spoke to preferred Chiang Mai's small town charm and accessibility over Bangkok's relentless sprawl and, and ambient intensity. Even those living in Bangkok, Chiang Mai isn't just livable, it's lovable. Then there's the culture. Chiang Mai punches way above its weight. Ancient Wats with mind bending architecture, centuries of history, museums people actually visit, rock, roll, and jazz clubs with fantastic musicians, film and theater festivals, a philharmonic orchestra and ballet if you're feeling fancy. Add a robust festival calendar, plenty of fine art galleries, and more street food than your digestive tract can handle. Chiang Mai is an amazing place to park your hat. For sportsters, there's kayaking, rafting, hiking, spelunking, biking, climbing, ziplining, pickleball, cricket, rugby, golf, and football pitches, plus public parks and community sports grounds where locals and tourists alike work off their overindulgence induced guilt and bellies. After a week of savoring the stylish ease of the Niman Mai Design Hotel, my time in that slick espresso scented neighborhood was up. I was ready for the change and to shift gears. My next hotel, which I had pre booked back in the States, looked perfect on paper. A heritage building tucked away down a charming soi, just 100 feet down an alley from the famed Saturday night market bazaar. Quaint, affordable, full of promise. The outside of the small hotel was charming in that deceptive way bad decisions look in hindsight. Whitewashed walls, cute wooden balconies draped with flowering vines. The kind of place that whispers, "Trust me, I'm quaint." But that would turn out to be the absolute highlight of the property. Check in was my first red flag. My reservation had been switched to a room with two twin beds. I never book twin beds. I don't even think in twin beds. Strike one. The desk clerk, who claimed they didn't even have rooms with king beds, despite my printed reservation saying otherwise, shrugged and offered no explanation beyond his non apology. Strike two. I then learned the elevator, listed on the booking site, was apparently a figment of someone's optimistic imagination. Up the stairs we went. Strike three. He opened my room, and I was hit with the squalid aesthetic of George Orwell's Down and Out in London and Paris. Spartan would be generous. Strike four. The clerk dropped my bags on the second twin bed that displayed no give, though it was the only available surface. I asked politely if there might be a discount due to the false advertising. No, he said. Just that. One syllable, delivered with the charisma of an overcooked turnip. Strike five. Then I checked the bathroom. The rotting plastic door, extruded to resemble putty gray wood, groaned like it knew it was complicit. Inside, a giant cockroach scuttled up the wall and disappeared through a crack in the ceiling, probably to file a tenant complaint of its own. The bathroom was so small you had to sit on the toilet to shower, using a little nozzle protruding from the ceiling like some dark punchline. Strike six and seven. I sat on the bed. It had all the give of a butcher's block. Strike eight. At that point, I knew I wouldn't be staying for the full duration of my reservation. I was willing to tough it out for one night, but the moment I opened my laptop to find a better place to stay, the Wi Fi limped along like it was running on a potato battery. Okay, so yeah, I am complaining that the Wi Fi wasn't fast. I couldn't even stream something to distract myself from the ambiance of despair. Strike 9. A full inning of strikes in 15 minutes flat. The weekly rate was cheap, yes, but so was the experience. I wrote it off, considered it a donation to the Ministry of Bad Choices, and began plotting my escape. This wasn't a hotel, it was a backpacker's hostel in disguise, and not even a good one. Sometimes, when adversity strikes, the best move is to take a deep breath, admit your inner turmoil, and remember no one makes good decisions when hangry and traumatized by lousy plumbing. I gave myself 5 minutes, sat cross legged on the hard bed, took some intentioned breaths, and meditated right there in that sad little room smelling of mildew and crushed dreams. I cranked up the laptop and left it to load up a booking site as I headed out past a recalcitrant clerk. I strolled the immediate neighborhood and grabbed a bunch of delicious Munchables from street carts. Fried chicken that was outrageously perfect, cut up watermelon and pineapple, and a long braised pork knuckle that was transcendent. Wandered around a few art galleries and clothing shops that called the night good. Upon my return to that disappointing hovel, and after a glacial load time and more buffering than a 2006 YouTube video, my laptop screen showed a new listing I hadn't seen before. Namton Boutique Hotel, located crosstown at 18 Samlarn Road. The photos looked promising. The location was central, and the rate? The deeply discounted deal felt suspiciously like karmic reward, even though I was skeptical. Well, considering that bad luck and dicey choices rarely strike twice in a row. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the trigger, booked the next 6 nights, and began drafting my breakup discussion to Hotel Cockroach. I rose early with a plan, though woke wasn't quite accurate. I hadn't really slept on that slab of hardwood masquerading as a bed. I'd walk across the old town at dawn to check out where I'd spend the next week. But first, a shower, if you can call it that. The bathroom situation was grim. I sat on the toilet under a feeble trickle of water, technically warmer than cold by a few degrees. Determined to get my money's worth, I used both sandpaper towels. Yes, petty, no regrets. Emptied the half full shampoo and conditioner left by the previous prisoner, despite barely regrown stubble, and lathered up with a stranger's used bar of soap. A farewell shower of spite. The walk to Nampton took about 20 minutes, cutting through the old town's crisscross of lanes, alleys, and temples. When I arrived, I smiled. The hotel was on a modest but lively road, and to my delight, sat right next to the Gravity Cafe and Bistro, where I'd had a fantastic lunch after visiting Wat Phra Singh during my first spin through Chiang Mai. The Nampton already had good juju. Out front, the hotel had what I can only describe as a semi ironic lounge setup: broad patio, low wicker tables, big padded rattan chairs, and couches atop bright green astroturf. There was a raised shrine where Buddha watched over the exterior and locals delivered offerings. It was charming in a way that made me chuckle, as if the designer said, "Yeah, it's a little off, but hey, it works." To enter, you slide open a huge teak wood and glass door by hand, which looked like it might groan under its own weight, but didn't. It glided open silently, like some secret passage in a very tasteful Lana inspired hideaway. Inside was a wonderful surprise. Surrounding me was a high ceiling Lana style courtyard with earthy stone flooring, dark polished wood, intricate beams and pillars, elegant statues, and genuinely striking art. Water gurgled through tiered ceramic pots overflowing with aquatic plants, the air perfumed with calm. If my last place screamed post war utility bunker, this whispered, "Your life just got much better." I walked across the cool courtyard tiles to the front desk, where a woman greeted me warmly. I introduced myself and explained the situation, softening the story like a diplomat caught between cultures. In Thailand, direct criticism or causing someone to lose face is a major faux pas, so I politely sidestepped naming names, pointing fingers, and airing my list of hostile horrors. Her name was Sand, and when I gave her the barest sketch of my ordeal, her eyes widened in disbelief. I explained that while I was sure the other place was perfectly fine for other people, I needed something a little more me. She nodded with a kind of unspoken solidarity, tapped a few things into her computer, and then looked up with a smile that said, "You're okay now." I'd been upgraded, she said, to a top floor room, thanks to the online deal and the length of my stay. That sounded suspiciously like good karma cashing in early. When I told her the address of the previous hotel and asked if they had a driver or shuttle that might help me retrieve my bags, her reaction was wordless but unmistakable. She knew. I didn't need to say anything else. Recognition flickered across her face like a knowing glance exchanged between survivors. She understood. We don't have a service like that. I'm sorry. I could order a grab car if you'd like. That would be fine, I replied, trying not to sound too deflated. I'd hoped for some more hospitality magic, but I figured I'd take what I could get. Good timing and karma were clearly on my side. Just as Sand reached for the phone, a young man strolled in, clearly part of the hotel crew. He breezed past me and into the staff area, then hovered near Sand, glancing at the computer screen. They discussed my position in Thai, during which Sand looked at me and smiled. This is Gorge. He's not working today, but he said he can help you go get your bags if that's okay, Sand offered. Was that okay? That was fantastic. Gorge had the casual charisma of a guy who could charm his way out of a speeding ticket or pick up any beautiful woman he desired. Let's go get your stuff, he said with an easy grin, reaching over the counter to shake my hand. I told him I needed 5 minutes to cram things into my bag and check out, and that I'd meet him out front. The other place was in a tight little soy with no space to park, but he waved it off. No problem. I'll circle till I see you. We drove back to the unmentionable place, where I packed with the determination of someone fleeing a crime scene and handed over the key to the grim desk clerk without fanfare. I said I was moving on. I didn't bother rehashing the extensive list of disappointments, and there was no refund offered, nor apology given. Some places deserve the Irish goodbye. When I rolled my bags out to the alley's edge, Gorge was pulling up like a knight clad in shining armor in his shiny SUV. They say timing is everything, and in this case, seeing Gorge's smile and a thumbs up through the windshield felt like breathing crisp mountain air. The Namton didn't have an elevator either, but by then I didn't care. Gorge hauled my bags up 4 flights of stairs like it was nothing. The staircases weren't simple either. Each level had two 90-degree turns, like some dark teak wood MC Escher design. But the climb was beautiful, wide, polished teak steps without a creak or groan to be heard, carved banisters, and at every landing, museum quality art tucked into niches or hanging above antique Asian cabinets. Chandeliers dangled overhead, their crystals casting light diamonds as Tiffany's sconces emitted a warm glow. At the top landing, Gord set my bags down beside a pair of paneled wooden doors, painted bold Chinese red, each panel adorned with hand rendered natural scenes with ornate characters in greens, browns, blues, and gold. The kind of doors that felt less like a room entryway and more like a portal to a sanctuary. The locking mechanism was fantastically analog. Two vertical wooden handles, one on each door, with a carved wooden hasp that slid into both handles. The hasp had a hole at one end, just wide enough for a long shank padlock, the kind you might use on a barn or a secret garden gate. Cord slid up the lock, slid the latch aside, and pulled the heavy doors open with a quiet creak, like he was letting me in on a secret. I looked down the hallway and caught my breath. Through the open doors, my room was stunning. The floor gleamed with rich, natural brown red stone, radiating organic warmth under the lights. One side of the hallway was lined with full length mirrors framed in carved teak. The other featured wood paneling inlaid with lighter grained designs. Along that paneled wall rested a massive antique armoire and a heavy teak bench, standing like a sentry. Gorge placed my roll on and day pack on the bench. They fit easily. He led me into the room where a king sized bed rested beneath a hand painted wooden panel the size of a billboard. At its center, a recessed carved lotus was backlit by a warm, romantic bulb. Reading lights flanked the headboard and were perfectly placed, perfectly restrained. The ceiling was subtly recessed, with broad wood beams hiding adjustable LED lights that bathed the room in a gentle amber glow. Fridge? Check. Security safe? Check. Everything was immaculate. The bathroom was just as impressive. A deep soaking tub sat on a tiled teak base, with a padded headrest and handheld shower wand. The cabinetry echoed the earthy tile palette greens, blues, browns, straight from a rainforest dream. A raised copper sink rested on top of the counter, with modern Moen fixtures and a large, ornately framed mirror that reminded me of home. The ceiling matched the bedroom's recessed beams and hidden lighting. Tasteful wooden shelving curved around the bath like thoughtful arms, ready to hold everything I'd need. The towels were thick, soft, and clean enough to make up for the last place 10 times over, with actual face cloths, a rarity in my travels. Amenities were top notch designer stuff. More art greeted me. Ceramic panels with extruded peacocks, turtles, and intricate inlays, even in the bathroom. Back in the main room, a writing desk stood ready with pens, hotel stationery, and complimentary bug juice for outdoor adventures. On an antique dresser, a flat screen TV perched neatly. Windows were shuttered with broad teak slats and heavy blackout curtains tucked to the sides. I gave Gorge a tip, generous by Thai standards, for all of his help. He accepted it with the same grace and easy smile he'd shown from the start, then disappeared down the stairs, leaving me to settle in. I unpacked slowly, gratefully, in full awareness of every movement and placement. Hanging clothes into a big armoire, smaller things into the dresser, cash and passport in the safe, and toiletries lined up neatly in the bathroom. Then I sat down on the bed for the first time. It was perfect. Firm but with enough give to cradle you just right. A fluffy duvet sat folded at the foot, ready to wrap me into the kind of sleep I hadn't had last night. I placed my nighttime books on the bedside table, took a deep breath, and let a wave of relief wash over me. Winding up in a really fantastic room has its benefits, something I would come to appreciate the very next night. Was it something I ate? Probably. I'd grazed my way through local cafes and food carts over hours of exploring the neighborhood. Or maybe it was ice in a drink that hadn't been filtered, or a rogue mouthful of tap water while brushing my teeth. Hard to say. In Thailand, it's called Bangkok Belly. In Mexico, Montezuma's Revenge. Every place has a catchy name for the gastrointestinal horror show that strikes unsuspecting tourists with equal opportunity vengeance. It starts with a little stomach crumble and ends in a full scale coup by microscopic insurgents who have found a five-star resort in your gut. And so that happened. At first, just a little discomfort, then waves of cramping, bloating, a fever that had me pendulum swinging between soaking sweat and teeth chattering chills. My body, normally an amicable host, had declared martial law. I lay curled in bed, then shuttled repeatedly to the bathroom as my digestive system waged war on the interlopers and vice versa. I tried to trace my steps, analyze every bite and sip from the past day, but the source remained an enigma. It didn't matter. The invaders were in, and they weren't leaving without a fight. I was trapped in a cycle of agony, vertical only for necessary water refills and moments of vital hygiene to feel vaguely human. Eventually, when the siege reached a temporary ceasefire, I brushed my teeth, washed my face again, and staggered downstairs to the front desk in search of salvation. I needed a pharmacy, and I needed it fast. The staff at the Nampton were exceptionally kind. I explained my situation as delicately as I could, no small feat considering the symptoms, and was gently told to return to my room. Someone would be up shortly. Perfect timing, because by the time I made it back upstairs, a far more aggressive assault had begun. I was shivering under the covers, caught in the grip of an ice cold fever attack, when I heard a voice at the door. May I come in? I muttered something between yes and dear God help, and in walked a staff member I didn't recognize, carrying a bag. It was from a local pharmacy. He stocked the fridge with Gatorade, set aspirin and Imodium on the bedside table, and told me to rest. That was the last thing I heard before slipping into unconsciousness. I awoke some time later, now boiling hot, and made the now familiar pilgrimage to the bathroom. As that next episode subsided, I downed some drugs, chugged a full Gatorade, then clicked on the TV, hoping for a little distraction from the soundtrack gurgling from my guts. Only one English language channel came through, and unfortunately, that channel was stuck in a loop of Tom Jones concerts. Too weak to argue, I left Tom on, gyrating in his open polyester shirt, gold chains, and glittering bell bottoms, singing his heart out to an invisible audience. As I drifted in and out of fevered sleep, I was reminded all night that the style fads of the '70s were, in fact, an international fashion crime. Eventually, Tom took his final hip thrusting bow as Tony Bennett took over crooning duties. Tony, I could hang with. The cycle continued bed, bathroom, bed. But the Imodium was finally winning the war. Through it all, the Nampton staff checked in every few hours with compassion. Cold washcloths dabbing my boiling forehead. Someone held my head steady while urging me to sip hot tea steeped in ginger. Just before 4 a.m., 2 days later, I woke up clear headed. My stomach was calm. My body had called off its internal riot, and for the first time in 36 hours, I didn't feel like I was moments away from spontaneous combustion or that I was lying naked on an icy crag during the Holocene. I immediately downed another Imodium tablet and chugged another full bottle of Gatorade in case those microscopic bastards were planning a desperate last ditch offensive. By 8, I was showered, shaved, weak but human again. Looking in the mirror at my newly slimmed down self, I considered naming my new diet plan the CM Diet, TM. The only real downside, aside from the gastrointestinal apocalypse, was that my belt no longer fit. I didn't have anything to punch a new hole, and my shorts had given up trying to stay on my hips. They puddled around my ankles unless I held them up like a Victorian damsel gathering her skirts before a fainting couch. I can't, in good conscience, recommend that as a weight loss regimen. But if you do find yourself in the unfortunate position of being stricken by Bangkok belly, I highly recommend being stricken at the Nampton Hotel. They treated me like family, nursed me through the worst of it, and saw me through to the other side with grace, kindness, and Gatorade. The center of Chiang Mai, what's known as the Old Town, is an is a central ancient walled city surrounded by an equally ancient moat. Surrounding that is the rest of Chiang Mai that grew outwards from the core. Within the center lives a bustling, near constant party with a distinctly international flair. There, hundreds of cafes, restaurants, bars, pubs, and street carts dish out cuisine and cocktails from every continent. Add in the multitude of pot shops, and you've got a vice filled wonderland for indulgent seekers. But Chiang Mai isn't all Sin City. Amidst the nightlife and noodle stands are art galleries, flower shops, indie boutiques, and clothing stores, offering more than the ubiquitous elephant print pants beloved only by tourists. There are fantastic bookstores. My favorite is the Lost Bookshop on Rachamanka Road, a multi level oasis of new and used titles. You'll also find hardware stores, scooter repair joints, pet shops, appliance and computer repair spots, and wet markets hawking everything from anchovies to zizania to mystery items I couldn't identify. Add clinics, hospitals, schools, from kindergarten to grad programs, and enough government offices to renew any visa or license, file for permits, etc. And you've got a self contained city state. You never actually have to leave the old town unless you want a different view. One of my favorite moments in Thailand took place in Chiang Mai on a soft December morning just after breakfast. It was early, 6 a.m. The city was still wiping sleep from its eyes. I'd slipped out into the breaking day with no particular destination, just that familiar pull to see what the morning had to say. I've always loved getting out before the world wakes up, no matter where I am. There's a kind of hush that hangs in the air when the light is still slanted and pure, and the day hasn't yet decided what kind of day it's going to be. That's when you find the good stuff, before it hides behind the hustle, before it retreats into shop fronts and the daily routine of life lived. You wander the side streets and alleys not for direction, but for discovery. That's where magic lives. Not on the boulevards, but in the quiet corners that don't expect to be seen by travelers. The day was beautiful. Cats and dogs were already out and about, some with their people, others on solitary patrol. Birds chirped their hearts out from the bushes and trees, and sleepy locals shuffled along with the soft smiles of people greeting the new day. I meandered wherever the alleys took me, simply soaking it all in, when I stumbled across a tidy little place called the Little Sunday Cafe. It was tucked on a quiet corner, Moon Muang Road, Lane 5, and Racha Dema Moen 5 Alley, where small residential side streets intersect. The place was straight out of a travel magazine. Whitewashed walls, pale wood accents, and a raised patio shaded by elegant umbrellas and flowering pots spilling over with a sun drenched riot of color. It was open. That was all the invitation I needed. One look at the menu confirmed it was owned by someone with serious restaurant chops. This wasn't some greasy hash slinging dive. This was next level. Omelets and benedicts, waffles and pancakes, homemade muesli, yogurt, cured meats, fresh pastries, hardcore coffee from a gleaming La Marzocco espresso machine. And yes, I know what you're thinking. You're in Thailand. Why the hell are you eating a Western breakfast? Fair observation. But sometimes streets steer you into something you weren't expecting. I didn't seek it out. I just followed the rhythms of the road and let my feet make the decisions. And there it was, a cafe tucked quietly into a sleepy corner. That kind of stumble upon it moment isn't giving in to a craving. It felt like breakfast had been waiting there all along, arms folded, checking its wristwatch, wondering when I'd finally show up. I ordered waffles with a gently scrambled egg on the side and seasonal fruit. I paired it with a quad shot latte, subtlety is for Tuesdays, and a tall glass of Thai milk tea, which, I'll admit, has become one of my more reliable vices. Sweet and earthy. It tastes like vacation. Before the server walked away, I hesitated for a beat, then asked the one question that would determine the fate of the meal. Do you have maple syrup? She smiled and nodded. From Canada. I smiled back with gratitude. When my breakfast arrived, it was a work of art. The presentation was gorgeous. The waffles crisp yet fluffy, like someone had whispered sweet nothings into a cloud, and the fruit could bring tears to your eyes. Thailand and New Zealand are the only places I've been where fruit consistently tastes like it's been blessed by gods. The mango and passion fruit were ethereal. The dragon fruit, often a beautiful but tasteless dud back home, was juicy, floral, and sweet, like a love child between pear and watermelon. In the Pacific Northwest, the imported dragon fruit looks like a supermodel but tastes like plaster. Full, grateful, and grinning, I thanked the staff and stepped back into the golden hush of morning. I wandered the alley where bougainvillea spilled over walls in electric pinks and purples. heading toward a main road. Shopkeepers were raising metal doors. The rhythmic shick, shick, shick of twig brooms echoed as sidewalks were swept. Hanging plants were getting their morning drink. Rugs were being beaten senseless, while laundry gently flapped above the lanes and alleys. It was a choreography of Thai morning life. As I approached the lane's end, a little black cat trotted up to me, tail high, eyes smiling. All my life, animals have come to me, not in that Disney princess bluebirds on the fingertips sort of way. They pause, assess me with a head tilt or a slow blink. Sometimes they decide I'm safe enough to approach. It's one of those inexplicable personal oddities, like being the guy who always ends up sitting next to the talker on the plane. Only in this case, the talker was four legged and furry. I don't know why it happens. Maybe I give off the right energy, equal parts curiosity and restraint. Or maybe animals, like some people, just respond to someone who knows how to shut up and listen. But in Thailand, as in Mexico, as in Spain, and other places around the world, the rules seem different. The strays here carry the memory of being ignored or mistreated. You can see it in the tension of their shoulders, the way they hesitate before stepping into the open, as if freedom might be a trap. Most cats and dogs glance at you with that universal expression of street hardened skepticism. Don't even try it, gringo. Then they bolt, tails low, paws silent, gone before your intention even finishes forming. Still, I will try. I always try. I crouch down, soften my eyes, angle my body slightly, not directly facing, not threatening. I become low and still and non threatening, offering what can only be described as a peace treaty in posture. And then I wait for a flick of an ear, for the hesitation in their retreat, for a twitch that says maybe this guy isn't dangerous. Because when it happens, when a dog circles back with its tail raised or a cat dares a single brush of its side against your leg, it's being granted entry into a quiet, sacred place, a place where nothing is asked of you except gentleness. That moment, brief as it is, always restores something in me. It makes me feel a little more grounded, a little more seen, a bit more humane, a little more okay. It's not language, not really. It's something deeper, the mutual recognition that, at our best, we're simply bodies moving through the world trying not to harm each other, trying, if we're lucky, to find small comforts in the presence of another living being. But that little one, she was different. She came bounding toward me without hesitation, her sleek black tail held high like a flag of friendship. Her posture radiated trust, her body language open and unafraid. And those eyes, those smiling, slow blinking electric green, I love you, pet me now, eyes melted me. The end of the lane spilled onto Mon Muong Road a half block further on. It was unusually quiet that morning. No cars speeding by, no scooters screaming around corners like mechanical hornets. I found a small plastic stool someone had left out and sat down to enjoy a proper makeout session with the cat. My cat, Dolores McGonagall, was back home, thousands of miles and oceans away. She and I were tight, like gazing into each other's eyes forever tight. So, yes, I'd been craving cat time. And this little bugger, who even looked like Dolores with her sleek black fur and emerald eyes, showing up like a feline fix. I named her Dolores for the duration of our fling. Why not? I should have mentioned that I'm allergic to animals. Not in a cute, sniffly way, but in a my lungs close up like a deflated sack way. Still, it's never stopped me. I've always figured that with enough hand washing, discipline, antihistamines, and a solid sense of denial, I could love on animals and live to tell the tale. And here, in the early morning light of Chiang Mai, that theory was in full swing. After about 15 minutes of snuggling and purrs, the newly christened Dolores decided we were done, as cats do. With zero explanation or apology, she stretched and strutted off like we hadn't just shared a moment. either back to her people or to destroy a bird. I stood up, brushing fur off my shirt, when I noticed a portly older gentleman. He had to be in his 90s and had been watching me from the shadows of an open shop bay across the alley. His face was a weathered masterpiece of sun worn, deep set creases that radiated wisdom, adorned by a Fu Manchu mustache and a goatee so theatrical it deserved its own casting agent. If Vincent Price and a temple guardian had a love child, this was him. He didn't speak. He just stared at me, one eyebrow cocked in faint amusement, before motioning for me to come over. When I hesitated and began to move along, still not sure if I was being summoned for a sales pitch or not, he let out a soft, bird like whistle and doubled down with an insistent, "Come here" wave. I looked around, half expecting a trap door to drop me into a Shanghai cell and cross the alley. His shop was a Frankensteinian mashup between scooter rentals and laundry service. I knew that he knew exactly where everything was, even if no one else did. Half assembled bike parts hung from ceiling hooks next to drying sheets and shirts, and an oscillating fan that had given up all pretense of oscillating on axis. I assumed he wanted me to rent a scooter, and then, after I crashed, clean my bloody clothes at a generous discount. Very enterprising. I smiled and shook my head. "I'm not renting a scooter," I said, pointing at one of his machines. He ignored me completely, then walked over, gently took my arm like an insistent grandfather, and with a solemn urgency said, "Come, wash hands. Cat dirty. You rub face. Wash." Which, to be fair, was entirely true. I just let Chiang Mai's doppelganger of Dolores rub its mange and memory all over me, and now my face was beginning to itch like the prelude to an EpiPen scene. Before I could protest, he was leading me, arm in hand, to a deep basin in the back of his shop. He turned the water on, assessed the temperature with the back of his hand like a seasoned caregiver, and handed me a clean washcloth and a plastic bottle of liquid soap that smelled like durian. I took a breath and lathered up like I was prepping for surgery. As I scrubbed, he hovered nearby, nodding approvingly and muttering in a mix of Thai and English, telling me the cat was very friendly but dirty. Always dirty. Must wash. Make you scratch sick. It was surreal. One minute I was chasing nostalgia in feline form. The next I was being nannied by a nonagenarian scooter laundry patriarch who took hygiene far more seriously than the local restaurants. The line between absurdity and kindness blurred in the best conceivable way. Just as I was patting my cheeks dry and wondering what sort of Yelp review this whole thing would earn, the shouting began. A woman roughly his age, though somehow with the energy of someone who just had her fifth cappuccino and many lifetimes of dealing with him, rounded the corner like a monsoon in house slippers. She stopped short when she saw me at the sink, her eyes narrowing in a perfect cartoon expression of exasperation. Then she turned on him with the theatrical precision of a woman who had performed the scene many times. It was in Thai, rapid fire yet melodic, a series of tonal flourishes that sounded less like scolding and more like jazz, but the gist was clear. I was the problem, and he was the cause. I froze mid pat, dripping water onto the floor, unsure whether to bow, apologize, or fake a seizure. My impulse was to flee, dignity be damned. But before I could make a break for it, he stepped between us like a man both brave and entirely used to those arguments. They went at it. He calm, she volcanic. He with soft, placating gestures and the occasional shrug. She with finger pointing, arm waving, and a perfectly timed eye roll that I felt. There were voices raised, yes, but there was also the unmistakable undercurrent of affection. This wasn't war, it was sport. She glanced at me again, this time less like I was a threat and more like I was a stray cur who had wandered into her kitchen. I offered her a sheepish smile, and she gave me a long, slow blink that somehow managed to convey, "This is my life, this man, this nonsense." Then she turned on her heels, muttering something under her breath. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a blessing. He turned back to me, sighed with a weary kind of dignity, and motioned for me to finish washing up, as if nothing had happened at all. I obediently resumed scrubbing my face, hands, and arms like a TV surgeon, now on round three. He handed me a towel, soft, clean, and obviously a result of their laundry business prowess. When I handed the towel back with a bow and a kop kun krab, he nodded solemnly and gently took my arm once more. He guided me to a pair of sun bleached and cracked, mismatched plastic chairs under the awning that shaded the front of their shop, the kind of chairs that had outlived conversations, monsoons, and a skirmish or two. We settled in. He told me his name was Larry, his chosen Western name, offered before I could give mine. A strange symmetry. Two Larrys from opposite ends of the world, seated side by side like some cosmic fable. We sat and talked for over 2 hours. He wanted to know everything: my life in America, my travels, what I thought of Thailand, and still clinging to hope, whether I might be persuaded to rent a scooter. Still no. He told me his tales of traveling across Europe and Asia as a young man, journeys that were epic and still alive in his mind. He told me he knew the streets of San Francisco because of Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen, Dirty Harry and Bullet, barreling their cars through impossible chases that thrilled him still. When I explained that those chase scenes were edited horseshit, that none of those streets actually connect, he laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. I love Hollywood, he shouted out to the passing traffic. A woman watering plants out front of her shop across the way yelled at him, obviously having heard too much over the years. When I admitted I wasn't a fan of ko soy, he looked at me as though I'd insulted Buddha himself. He made me promise to keep trying until I found one that changed my mind. I asked if his wife made ko soy, gently fishing for a dinner invite. He chuckled and waved me off. She cannot cook laundry, let alone food. My plans I'd had for the morning were rescheduled under the gentle insistence of his company and a few cold post breakfast beers. The age old breakfast of philosophers. He was stunned when I told him I'd spent a month at Buddhist monastery. Why? He asked with genuine confusion. So many pretty Thai wife for you. I explained about the breakup. He nodded, not unkindly, then chuckled. Good Thai wife help you forget that one. His wife, meanwhile, sat behind the service counter, pretending not to listen. But every now and then I'd catch her glancing up, her expression somewhere between stern disapproval and long suffering affection. The look of someone who's heard it all before, but still finds a certain charm in the repetition. From time to time, her glare softened into something else, something almost like a smile, the kind that escapes before the ego traps it and shoves it back into a corner lest it be discovered. I'll never forget that morning, not because anything momentous happened, but because something beautiful did. A door opened, a stranger decided, without hesitation or agenda, except to rent a scooter, of course, to care for me. And in the span of a conversation, we were no longer strangers. What started as a random encounter at the end of an alley turned into one of those lovely moments of human connection that stays with you for life. I got up to leave and walked to the back counter, thanking his wife, not just for the towel or the space or the patience, but for loaning me her husband for a little while. She rolled her eyes in that global language that spoke of long term relationships and the challenges that come from marrying souls, but there was a glimmer behind them too, a wink, quick and sly, that said she understood far more English than she let on. She gave me a little shooing wave with her fingers, gentle but unmistakable. It was time to move on. Well, that was a long, long chapter, everyone. If you stuck with me through it, hey, good for you. Chapter was about a little over an hour and a half long. Holy giggities. Which means that is the only chapter we're going to get through tonight. Because, wow, I hope you enjoyed. I will say Larry does a fantastic job of being descriptive as he goes through. Maybe a little bit more than he needs to on some of it, but it does paint a very vivid picture of what it was like. Some of his favorite meals as he had them in there, and some of that as we went through. So overall, I am really enjoying this book, and I hope you guys are as well. As a reminder, chapter 4 was recorded. It will be posted up to the YouTube channel when I end the stream tonight. So it'll be ready, I don't know, whenever YouTube decides to make it ready. Probably later this evening or in the next couple of hours. So you can catch it at youtube.com/at Sir Arminius. And as always, if you want to check out the author, I've got some links that'll be on the saved videos on YouTube to some of his various sites. Or you could just search Lawrence Davidson on Amazon and you should be able to track him down. The flow is available at all sorts of different places, I believe. Amazon, I am sure, being one of them. Stop out there, check it out, pick it up if you are enjoying this like I am. We will go ahead and pick up the story on chapter 5 on Saturday when we dive back into story time. In the meantime, Thursday, I will have my Mech Warrior online stream where I relax, I play some games, and I read Battletech books to you guys. You know, if you guys haven't caught the theme here, I do a lot of reading during my streams. Hey, that's what you get from a voiceover artist, right? Well, thank you so much for being here with me tonight. The greatest gift that you can give me is the gift of your time, and I appreciate that you guys gave me the gift of yours this evening, whether it was for 5 minutes or for 2 hours. Again, whatever channel you happen to be watching on, if you have not done so, click the follow button, the subscribe button, whatever it happens to be, whatever that free button is. I mean, you're welcome to send me money. I'm never going to say no. But at least, follow me along. Help me to grow the channel and bring more into this reading that I do. Have a wonderful week ahead, and I will look forward to seeing you guys all again really soon. Have a great night, everybody.